All along that Mr. Danchenko was innocent. We're happy now that the American public knows that as well. We thank these jurors for their hard work and deliberation in reaching the right result.
Special counsel John Durham had filed the charges as part of his probe of the FBI's Russia investigation. Police say an arrest has been made in Florida in a quadruple murder in Oklahoma.
Joe Kennedy was driving a stolen car when he was taken into custody in Daytona Beach. Okmulgee police plan to question Kennedy a second time about the deaths and dismembering of 4 men. Their bodies were found in a river last week. Police say Kennedy owns a scrap yard in the town where investigators discovered evidence of violence. The process to get Kennedy back to Oklahoma has begun. At this point, he has not been charged with any of the murders.
Fox's Gernal Scott, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Hey, you got me unprepared. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that is the opening of this episode of Tall Tales. It is Wednesday, October 19th, 4:07 p.m., I am your host, Jose Martinez. In the booth is Daryl Taggarty.
As always.
Welcome, welcome. And welcome to everybody out there, our international radio listening audience, our local radio listening audience.
As many as can gather under this banner.
Our rogues who sport the I'm a Tailgater t-shirt, and those who are watching via the live stream on Facebook and the live stream on YouTube. I'm trying to prep. I'm trying to be like they call not a cheerleader. There's an animator. I'm trying to animate today because I haven't really seen too much that's exciting. I want some really red meat exciting stuff.
Do you want me to argue with you?
No.
Okay.
Because that's boring. It's tough to win all the time, Daryl. In my mind, I'm always a winner.
You are.
Because doggone it, I'm good enough. Oh, man, I doing that Stuart Smalley thing that Jonathan Turley was talking about the other day. Do you remember that show?
I was listening to jazz. I wasn't watching TV.
Stuart Smalley, I'm trying to remember the name of that comedian who became a senator, I believe, in Minnesota, was it? Or Michigan?
Oh, Al Franken.
Al Franken.
Right.
And then
I got a CD of his.
He was. He's not bad. He's pretty funny, but that Stuart Smalley was just a generation away, or not a generation, a decade away from the beta male era. Where the guy's just, it's funny. But he he actually is the first casualty of the woke culture, the cancel culture. If you remember, I think it was just somebody who had complained about the way he inappropriately touched her, and we don't even know if he touched her or not because there was a picture. And I'm not defending Al Franken. I just think it might be another incident.
Can you define knowing?
Horse whipping, where the picture showed something and everybody knew what the picture was, right?
And of course, the jury is us.
The jury is us, and he resigned, and then it's not months later, years later, he had a change of heart and said, I should not have resigned, because he said he resigned not because of the truth of the matter, but because of the optics. Yeah,
That's right, because he was upholding the principle of the thing.
right. Well, that's
And then when he
And that's
found
his
out
fault.
that it couldn't be proven,
that's his fault,
that
though.
he regretted it.
Yeah, because he is a woke person himself, and he thought that as long as I do this, I'm going to be well received and accepted. And they went, no, we're kicking you out of the club. That's what happened. Too bad.
Well, he wasn't a member of the club to begin with.
No, I'm talking about the left progressive woke club. Just for doing that, he became a pariah. Yeah. So, which is funny because he is not a pariah in their eyes, but he did something that would make it look like that.
So don't do this.
So don't do that. Don't be Stuart Smalley. Or maybe if he stayed Stuart Smalley, it would have been fine.
Don't do the things that Stuart Smalley did.
Especially wear those sweaters. Let's get to Jemmy Cutney. I read this earlier today, and it would just kind of put me back to sleep. And it's not because of the subject matter; it's just the way it was written. It's another feel-good PR piece. This one is about the disabled, but it's called abled, right? Our view from the Guam PDN. Of course, we haven't said this in a while, but the reason why we're reading from the editorial from the Guam PDN is because it's the only thing that we're able to read that's local from print media. The other print media on island, the Guam Daily Post, refuses, pouts whenever we ask them for a local editorial. They stomp their feet, and in my mind they do, and they thumb their nose up at us.
They stomp their feet in your mind?
Yes, in my mind. I can see it happening.
What about the other print media?
No, they don't. They don't.
No, I mean the other.
No, they don't.
Pacific Island Times.
No, well, that's a monthly, so I don't really look at them as a daily periodical. That usually, but you know, they do have
online.
Marvick usually does a publisher's letter. That's pretty biting sometimes. The last one that I really enjoyed reading is when she called out the governor for milking it for all it's worth, the health emergency. And I don't think she's used that kind of language again as far as like criticism.
It doesn't take, it takes a lot.
But it was interesting that she used those words.
Bite.
Yeah, but she used those words, and I thought that was interesting. And I know it wasn't a gimmick to sell more papers because, you know, she's not gimmicky. That she's a really great writer. But yes, but here we are, Guam PDN, our view. Prepare. That's the one-word title. Guam Able Savings Program helps those with disabilities and caregivers prepare for the future. Life in and of itself is a series of challenges. Sometimes these challenges make us. Other times they break us. I think they lifted that from a song. Sounds like lyrics. Life with a disability takes these challenges to a whole new level. For some, the disability came later in life after important skills were learned, goals were achieved, careers were established, and financial plans were made for the future. Their challenges are no less daunting, but having that bit of preparation goes a long way. For others, the disability has been a lifelong journey, one that required guidance and continuous care and support of family each day. For these individuals and the loved ones who see them through the long days of appointments, treatments, and therapies, everyday worries about the future are part of the daily schedule that includes breakfast, bathing, and unconditional love. Thankfully, caregivers, especially the parents and family of loved ones with disabilities, now have a new tool to help plan for the future with the Guam Able Savings Program. Initially passed into law in 2018, the measure, introduced by former Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. and Senator Joe San Augustine, allows families and caregivers to establish a Guam Able Savings account and allows account contributions to be made with pre-tax earnings deducted from taxable income. The law, which was further strengthened this year by Senator Jim Moylan, allows an Able Savings account to provide secure funding for disability-related expenses such as housing, education, health, and transportation costs, according to Public Law 34-144. Moylan's measure also authorizes the governor to transfer up to $250,000 to help implement the program. Fantastic foresight on the part of lawmakers. The Guam Able Savings Program has finally been established by the Department of Administration, according to a news release issued by Adelup. This is important news for the thousands of families caring for loved ones with disabilities who must plan for the future. A savings account may not eliminate the toughest challenge, but this kind of preparation is critical. Those with disabilities and their families deserve whatever assistance the community can provide. And now it's time for my begrudgingly criticism. Now, I really don't have criticism too much for this. It's a feel-good piece. But, you know, the way they're lauding this, it's almost like they're forgetting that this is a campaign. It's campaign season right now. And it's amazing how things like this come out. And just, I'm sure it's not coincidental, but I'm not sure this is the timing. They did this on purpose. But I also want to juxtapose this bill and its intent to, and we'll talk about this on Friday when we play the citizen Lulian Guerrero testimony, where she gave a price to the life of a person according to their quality of life, and who determines that and how much it would cost families and the government. Right. And here's a prime example of why we don't terminate the lives of people based on their worth or your perception of their worth or anybody else's perception of how they're going to function in society the way I want them to function in society. And I would take anybody who has the same mindset as citizen than Lulian Guerrero, who testified against a bill that would provide care not only from the time of birth, but even maybe a couple hours afterwards or maybe weeks afterwards, to take a look at something like this and say that society is willing to take on the costs because people are worth it.
Now, this bill, is it already on the third reading?
Which one? This? It didn't say. It said it's already passed into law. Public Law 34-144. It is a law.
Okay,
yeah.
So she signed it.
Yeah. And that's also something to take note of, you know. So she signed it. So what was the reason for her testimony in
where's the cutoff?
Yeah. What is the cutoff? What was
good point.
What was the political capital for her at the time, right? I don't know, because she was then just citizen Lulian Guerrero. Or maybe it's ego. I can't stray from what I've always been arguing my whole life, or at least since 1990 publicly. But that's interesting op-ed, and of course I always find a way to connect it to things. My mind works in tangents, and everything is connected.
Well, I just wonder about the last point that was made there.
Mm-hmm.
What other things are supposed to be already implemented that are not, like accessibility, like some people who are disabled are not disabled because they're congenitally disabled. Some are simply disabled because they had a recent operation. Some are disabled because they've had a stroke, they have a medical condition which is very recent, and they go from being very able to less able. And the accommodations for those who are chronically disabled are the same ones that would assist all people who find themselves with a sprained ankle,
Well, I think they're looking at something that's a little bit more of a permanent than a conditioned, like a sprained ankle.
That's right, but you see, but there are not. There's progress, but it's really slow.
Mm-hmm. And some of this looks more like it's meant for physical disabilities, but we do know that there are other disabilities that aren't so visible and apparent to somebody with a naked eye or an untrained eye. Mm-hmm. I know some people who are disabled because of things like anxiety and PTSD and things like that as well. And I think that's a subject that's worth discussing, but a lot of people don't want to or don't want to touch that.
Another good point,
Yeah.
and not very well served.
No. Well, especially here on Guam.
On Guam.
Yeah. So let's that's a good discussion, and I hope anybody who has something to add to it can call in. Our phone number here is 671 is 888-8255. I remembered it. 671-888-8255. Let's go to the card. Alrighty. Of course, we know about systemic racism. Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. It's not about the red rice. It's about the narrative. And I think we did a good job of pointing out those instances where the racism is to the forefront. I don't think I found anything lately that I read today or yesterday that I want to share, but well, when I get to the card, I'll talk about it. I looked at several of the ads or the announcements for meetings. I didn't see any violations, but I did want to make note that people are doing a good job. There's quite a number of meetings, especially the hospital. I was looking at what the hospital was going to be talking about.
They're listening to you.
Pretty boring. They're not listening to me. They're following the law. I have nothing to do with it.
Take a bow.
Oh, no. Nothing to do with it, but thank you. Thank you, Daryl. I only wish you would listen to me.
I do. I
just
listen.
said
Whether
that.
I follow is another matter.
I have no, I really had no reason to say that. I just thought I'd say
I have my best headphones on.
And then I'm just going to go over a couple of things that are local paper today. Like I have something called small business versus time. I wanted to say like small businesses versus fiscal year 2025, but that's a little too specific. I think time was better. We have Washington, D.C. versus the what is it? The 15th Amendment? But it's not really versus, but it's the best I can come up with.
You're talking about that cockamamie idea of having non-citizens vote?
It's not so cockamamie as you think, but
it is nuts.
It is, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that because I found something that's very interesting. Here we have, I kind of struggled over this one to read or not. It's called, this one is the U.S. military versus the U.S. military. And this is an article that came out of Wall Street Journal titled The U.S. Military's Growing Weakness. And this is born from a Heritage Foundation report about our military. And you know, this isn't public paper, so we're not giving away any military secrets by reading this, but it does give a pause, not cause, but a pause for concern. Have Governor LG versus the cart, and the cart I'm referring to is the cart that comes before the Carabao, and then tourism industry versus tourists. And these are all front page articles, and I think they garner some discussion. Some people would want to talk about some of this that's on the public, especially with the election coming up. So let's get to, do we have somebody in the green room? Oh, all right. Someone very familiar to both of us, Bob Kelly.
Yep.
Good afternoon.
You were talking a minute ago about the public meetings, the notices, and of course, the stuff on
real quick, Bob. Bob, before you continue,
I'm having a very hard time understanding. It sounds like you're underwater right now. I'm not sure. Oh, he's going to call back probably. This is
I hope so.
This is our communication radio tech guy. And
He's the guru.
I know he's back on island. He was in Saipan earlier this morning, or last night. He's back.
Why does he sound like he's underwater? It sounds like he's on his way back.
No, he's back. So we'll wait for him to call in. He wants to talk about the meetings,
About public meetings.
Public meetings, yeah. About the announcements, did he say, or just
on
public meetings?
Just said public meetings.
Okay.
He had a really good point this morning. He was talking about the disclaimer at the end of local political ads.
Oh, yeah.
You catch that on Ray's show?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, real interesting.
Didn't I know there's federal versus what local laws require, mandate?
Well, there's a requirement for broadcasting advertisements for federal positions.
Who are the ones?
Races.
Because Ray brought this up. He goes, well, I'm not going to police them because I'm not the enforcer. Who is the enforcer? FCC? Or is it somebody else?
No, I think it's
for
Federal Election Commission.
Okay, and what about local laws? Who would be the one?
The local law has to do with identifying the source of funds.
So that would be the Guam Election Commission?
No, the enforcer?
Yeah.
It would be the Guam Election Commission. And then the local law has to do with the source of funds to pay for it. So you don't have dark money paying for ads or black ads that have no apparent, like those signs out on the roadside that don't have any.
Nobody's saying
no sponsor.
But see,
listed.
I think that goes back to, and was it Bob Kelly mentioned John McCain, and I can't remember the other person who had that bill come up.
McCain-Feingold.
Right. Yeah, don't remind us.
McCain-Feingold.
It was a Feingold. Anyways, and there's a huge debate about, does this violate the First Amendment? And I think it's a good debate because the same could be said about those signs. Why do they have to be identified? Can it just be a private citizen putting those signs up? And that's my question. Is there a debate around? I understand the law that had to take them down because of the posting of them. There is a law that says you have to get permission to post, but I don't know if it's specifically just for political signs or just any signs.
Do you remember Citizens United, the Supreme Court case that said that corporations have the same rights as people?
Yes.
Okay, but you cannot have an individual limit on how much they can spend.
Yes,
for political.
That was the McCain-Feingold part of that bill, also, right? Of contributions were considered a First Amendment right.
And the Supreme Court said that in the Citizens United case that that corporations could donate more than an individual amount, and that they didn't have to be revealed. So suppose there's an entity, whoever by whatever origin, starts sprouting signs all over the island campaigning against somebody or for somebody, but they're not listing the money for the candidate of their choosing. And so the candidate simply stands back and says, I don't know anything about this. And they never have to reveal the source of the funds, but it's clearly benefiting their campaign.
Well, yeah, but how do you?
And then it circumvents the law.
But how do you
says
police that?
you have to list your donors.
Yeah.
How do you police it?
Yeah. You just take
by
it out.
having the requirement that all signs be identified for source of funds.
That's very interesting. I'm still not sure about the. Well, I guess the courts did speak about on that. I don't know if they've spoken on the violation of the First Amendment here on the local law. I remember when those signs that went up on Bishop Circle first came out. Candidate Doug Moylan, or former Attorney General Doug Moylan, spoke on a potential violation of the First Amendment from that statute or law, talking about those signs. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Repeat. I'm going to come to you since you want to talk about these mysterious signs. Ooh. woo, smoke, sound, thunder, woo. That's my sound effect. I don't have the board in front of me, so you're going to have to deal with that budget. Repeat, are you there? Oh, do you bring the phone up? There we go.
Hello?
Good afternoon, Pete. I can hear you now. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so the signs that were in place by extraterrestrial beings. No, so I want to clarify something Daryl said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone can put up a sign as long as they are not in communication or in coordination with the candidate that it helps. Okay? So, yes, someone can put up a sign if they want, you know, but they cannot do it in concert or coordination or with the knowledge of the candidate.
Do they
So
have to be identified?
Not that I'm aware of, but the thing is, those signs, and I don't know this for sure, but there's a group on Facebook called Guam Law and Order, which I just stumbled upon a couple weeks ago.
I saw the website. Yeah.
Yeah, but they've been in existence for about probably 6 months now.
Okay.
And it reminds me of that corruption website. Remember that corruption website, the Guam corruption website that sprouted up, and then nobody knew who was responsible for it. Well, anyways, the guy that runs the Law and Order. It's a fake account, but he goes by Lando, Lando, because it's Law and Order.
Oh,
Guam
not Clarician? Has nothing to do with Star Wars.
Yeah, right. That's a great character. But anyways, he's been bashing me on Facebook. So that narrows down the you know, it's definitely, the signs are definitely anti-leaving. So it could have been supporting me or Doug, but then now the guy that runs it is bashing me on Facebook, so then that leaves only one man standing.
You're attracting attention.
well, he's a so there is a connection between the sign and this website or this Facebook page, or both.
That's what I'm thinking, because they both have the same you know, tenor and style.
I'll check it out. You know, it's unfortunate though, and I understand to a bit during the 2020 elections where Facebook was looking and monitoring these sites that promoted certain candidates or had negative campaigning against other candidates. We saw this on Guam before the primaries around July 4th, because I searched all these sites that started popping up and started putting ads on our Facebook feeds. They look like news aggregators, and then some of them tried to be tourism pages, and they were all created around July 4th, and they're all created by unknown people, but all the other people that were liking and commenting were all from the Philippines. It was kind of strange. It was almost like an ad agency was paid to do this, or some marketing agency, and use some of their connections in the Philippines to kind of like feed the site to make it look like it was important. But of course, they all went up against Michael St. Nicholas. They didn't do it directly through the post, but they did it through the people commenting on the articles, and it was really shiesty.
Right.
Really shiesty.
My observation was the bulk of Michael St. Nicholas supporters were coming out of the Philippines as well.
I didn't see any of those, and I saw mostly the ones against, and maybe because you were interested in that, because I do know that you had a bit of a kerfuffle. I'm going to be lightly and gentle about it with him. So I mean, we tend to see those things when we look for them, but these sites were amazing. I actually documented all of them. Just took screenshots. I think there was at least 15 of them, which was incredible. They're not active now.
You have too much time on your hands, Jose.
Right. You know, the amazing thing, though, is that it went from being an online social media presence to actually huge physical signs on our roadways.
Yes, and that's different.
That are not cheap.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So someone definitely that has deep pockets is definitely, you know, doesn't want to see leaving. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna, discourage that.
Well, Pete, I know that you're a writing candidate for Attorney General, but I've always wanted to say this because Ray says it all the time. There is somebody more important on the line I need to get to. So thank you for calling.
Okay.
And we'll talk to you later. All righty.
Yes, sir.
Bob, are you back? You are more important to me, Bob.
Well,
That's why I got
just
you.
was wondering because it's been reported in the media, I think even discussed on Ray's show, but I wasn't able to call in, that the Board of Education on review is getting their selection down for their superintendent, and they reviewed some of the policy issues and what they needed for a superintendent when they had a Board of Education. The board had a retreat last week. And I was just wondering, if you can't hold meetings without public notice, how do they go off and have a retreat?
Would that be considered? Can anything be done out of a retreat as far as the way meetings have?
You're not even supposed to have multiple board members meet before a board meeting to discuss policy. I think I remember right when I was involved with boards 15, 20 years ago. If more than 3 people met together of a board, then you've got a violation.
Even for lunch?
That gets into the question. But here's the problem: if you sit there and you discuss it and go through it, then it's outside the public eye, right?
Yeah, there's always that happens, that area for concern.
It's the issue of the transparency. But if the whole board got together and had a retreat, how could they do that without violating the policy of a board meeting without notice?
No discussion of policy, that's all. They just don't discuss policy. They're just having fun.
I don't think the board got together to do a seance.
Right. That's a good question. Is that the one way to circumnavigate discussing what was on the table just right before the one on a retreat without having to be transparent? Just putting the question out there because I understand your concern. Something big, we have these candidates for superintendent, and then instead of would their discussion on those candidates only occur in an executive session? Could they call this retreat an executive session?
Well, remember, even an executive session has to be noticed, and
that's right. And the reason why for the executive.
That's right. I mean, if it's personnel issues, that can kind of go to executive session, and then so on. But I'm just, I don't know. It just kind of got me thinking. They had a retreat. The whole board goes to a retreat. How do they do that without the public being there and without public notice?
Maybe you just found a loophole for them, Bob. And if we see a lot more retreats being scheduled between now and December, I would have somebody look into that.
I have another concern. Right now, there are people running for the school board.
Yes.
So if they make a decision, any kind of a decision, before the election, and it's not properly noticed, then when they have new members, is it still binding?
Well, yeah, I guess if it's a real session that they've had, yeah. But Bob, that's a great question. Was there something else you want to talk about meetings, or that was
just maybe some other callers can come in on board.
Right.
I mean, if they can do it, why not the CUC board? Why not the whatever board we want to come down? They could just, instead of holding meetings and publicly notice, let's go have a board retreat at the Dusatani or whatever.
I hear they have a nice spa. All right, we have to go to a break, Bob. That is a very great question, and I'm definitely going to pose that with Bob Klitzkie when he gets back. I'm sure he'll have
he's pretty much into public notice, so he might have some opinions on that.
Right, absolutely. All right, cool. Thanks for the call.
See you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. My name is Jose. We'll be right back right after this.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Tell me about it, stud.
Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Festival
Festival is back on Saturday, October 22nd. We rockin' and rollin' at the Dusatani Guam Resort from 2 to 10 p.m. Bring your friends and come dressed in your best Grease costume to win up to $500 in cash and prizes. So bust out those leather jackets and 50-style outfits as we party the night away at Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Fest. Don't be a square. Get your tickets now at craftbeerfestguam.com or cruise on by any 76 Circle K location. Now that's cool, baby.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And welcome back. You're listening to Tall Tales. My name is Jose. We are just about a couple of days away from the return of our esteemed host, Bob Klitzkie. 1 week. 1 week, a little less than exactly a week from now. So we can't wait for his return. Can't wait to hear about his exciting trips.
We have to wait for his return.
I can't wait. I'm not going to sleep that night. But he's on his way here. He's on his way back to the island. And I'm reminded that he's already working when he returns. I hear he's going to be a speaker at one of the a meeting. I can't remember what the name of it is. I'll verify it and talk about it tomorrow. But there's quite a lot of people here on Facebook I want to say hi to. Our usual Rico Blancafor, who is a Rogues Gallery tailgater, Pam Duvall. Good afternoon. And she usually goes and listens on air after coming on Facebook. Jose Tapago Jr., Repeat, who repeated his greetings on the phone after we made him on Facebook. Lani Suba, good evening. Lonnie Salas, who likes to thank us a lot, Daryl.
Well, you're welcome.
Mark Anthony,
thanks for
afternoon. I have to say, I have to make a correction. Yesterday, I referenced a listener by the name of Ben Leon Guerrero, and it's actually Ellen Leon Guerrero. But it looks like a B, the E, and the L on this screen here. When I took a closer look, not only did I realize that the letters are a little blurred, but my eyes need checking. I don't need glasses for reading. I do need glasses for far away. This is far away for me.
So vain.
No, not at all. It's functional. The glasses are functional. Benedosu, who is a pseudonym for somebody who is in Facebook jail. I'm not going to say who it is. Juanita Machi, good afternoon. Shelly Gibson, good to see you on here. Oh, Brian Bunn. Daryl, do you remember Mr. Brian Bunn?
Of course.
He is calling present. He's in the lineup. And I want to say hi to Brother Adonis. Good to see you. And let's see who else is on here that I have not mentioned. I really, Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero, good to see you. I really, really appreciate everybody who's on here. Bertha Cruz, because, it's funny because we don't have a way to really gauge the listeners. We don't have that same kind of system they have in the States. When I was a teenager.
Speak for yourself. I think highly of these listeners.
What did I say?
How you gauge them.
No, I'm talking about gauging listenership for our stations. And Facebook has been a great way to see who comes on. We have the apps also that we can gauge how many people are listening to the app and listening to the program. And when they come on, there's a map that points out and flags everybody. But there's a, I don't even know the name of it anymore, but when I was a kid, I was sent a booklet, almost like a little diary that you indicate. Arbitron, yeah. And you write in when you listen to the radio and everything. Then you send it back to them. And
see, I'm a radio person too.
So
it doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm not after the big numbers like Albert Juan is after these big numbers, right? Daryl Lizama. I like niche programming.
Well, from your background, yes, absolutely.
Yes, it doesn't matter.
But one of the greatest things that shows us that we have awesome listeners and we have a good audience is that The Point was elected or was nominated and then elected for Best of Pica's Best Radio Station for 2021.
And those are radio listeners.
Those are radio listeners, absolutely. And they are media readers also, because they went to Guampedia and voted. They voted also for our sponsors. And this time we were nominated again, along with our sister stations. And we have 4 radio personalities from our family broadcasters that are nominated for Best Radio Personality. So we really want to thank everyone for listening. All of you who are watching on Facebook, watching on YouTube, and listening over the airwaves. So that's my moment. I want to thank everybody again. There we go.
I'm getting better at this pushing button stuff.
Let's get to this one thing where I was saying Washington, D.C. versus the 15th Amendment. And it's not really versus 15th Amendment. It's versus a certain law, and I can't remember which law it is that prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal cases. And we had a little bit of a connection to the recent, the recent shade, the case that the Supreme Court gave shade to Fitzsimmons, who's wanting to be a U.S. citizen because he was born in a U.S. territory, although that status...
He lived in Utah.
He lived in Utah. There is a path to citizenship, but it's the same path that immigrants have to go through, the same exact way. But he mentioned the reason why he wants to be a citizen because he wants to vote in federal elections. Now, I don't know how it is in Utah or anywhere else he's at, but there are some states and some localities that do allow non-citizens to vote in their local elections or state elections. And I have a list of them here. I just went and looked online because I saw this editorial from the Washington Post, of all places.
You read the Washington Post?
I read everything, even the New York Times. That's where I got that silly little article. Well, I think that was sent to me. Ooh. But let's read this real quick. I know that we're coming up on a... Actually, let's take a real quick break, and then we'll get to this this editorial from the Washington Post against letting non-citizens vote in the D.C. elections. We'll be right back.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
We're already Pica's best radio station, and we want to keep it that way. Voting for Pica's best radio station is on and underway. If you've already voted for The Point, thank you. If not, there's still time to get yours in. We're honored that many of you have nominated us again, and we'll keep looking for ways to keep you informed, up to date, and entertained. Fox News, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie and all the great talk shows from around USA. Tell a friend and share your votes with all The Point's super advertisers. Thanks from all the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
You are listening to Tall Tales here on 93.3 FM, The Point. It is 4:47. I'm going to get to this editorial from the Washington Post. Opinion. D.C. is considering legislation to let non-citizens vote, and that's a bad idea. Voting is a foundational right of citizenship. That's why we oppose a bill poised to pass the D.C. Council this week that would allow an estimated 50,000 non-citizen residents to cast ballots in local elections. This newspaper has opposed efforts over the past decade to rewrite D.C.'s election code so green card holders could vote. What's now before the council is more radical. The proposal has been expanded to give voting rights in local elections to all non-citizen adults, regardless whether they are in the country legally, so long as they've resided in the district for 30 days. 30 days. Anyone who has ever been to a naturalization ceremony can attest to how special it feels to welcome new members into the American family. New citizens must swear an oath renouncing all allegiances to foreign powers and promising to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies. There's nothing in this measure to prevent employees at embassies of governments that are openly hostile to the United States from casting ballots, or foreign students who are studying abroad in Washington for a semester. The U.S. Constitution does not explicitly prohibit what the D.C. bill seeks to do, but a law signed in 1996 by President Bill Clinton bans non-citizens from voting in federal contests. Unlike in some municipalities that have been experimenting with letting non-citizens vote, such as Tacoma Park in Maryland, federal and local elections take place in the district on the same day and on the same ballot. The proposed law presents logistical nightmares that will require the Board of Elections to print separate ballots so that non-citizens don't vote in federal races. The city estimates this will cost at least $3 million to implement. Some progressives hope that reshaping the electorate will allow them to reshape local politics, prodding the city further to the left on issues such as rent control and spending on social programs. Sponsors of the bill are rushing to get it enacted so that the 30-day review period for Congress to overturn the law will expire before Republicans likely take over the House in January. This is a dangerous calculation. Democratic leaders might be handing a political gift to the GOP just 3 weeks before the midterms. Ballot initiatives passed in 2020 to ban non-citizens from voting in Florida, Colorado, and Alabama. A similar measure is expected to pass next month in Ohio. Arizona already bans non-citizens from voting in local or state elections. Representative Jeff Duncan from South Carolina and Senator Marco Rubio of Florida introduced legislation this year to prohibit the disbursement of federal funds to any governments that allow non-citizens to vote in any election. It's easy to see House Republicans advancing such a bill next year. The council's unwise move will likely set back the cause of statehood. Allowing non-citizens to vote in the capital city will also make passage of bipartisan immigration reform on Capitol Hill less likely. Many Republicans will point to this as a validation of their claims that Democrats want open borders so they could win more elections. We support increasing legal immigration and accelerating the process for the frustrating backlog of citizenship applications. Giving more people the right to vote is a vital endeavor, but it should be done the right way. And that's from the Washington Post. They're thinking strategically, and they also have so
it's practical.
And practical also. Well, I say strategically because they interjected the whole GOP is going to win on this issue and cause. But it's not so much, it shouldn't just be the GOP. It should be the Democrats itself as well, because it does lend to that narrative that Democrats want open borders so that immigrants can vote for them.
And there are also members of Congress who will look at this, Democrat and Republican, who are going to look at this and be concerned about whether they're going to be able to be reelected if they don't put a stop to it in their home states. So why they would pull this kind of a rabbit out of a hat now?
Well, it's the D.C. Council.
But the $3 million that it would cost to do this could go a long ways to addressing some of the problems that they want to address.
Now, this is the same city or same district that voted in Marion Barry after his first, and how many terms did he have before he went to jail?
You know how many, how much the demographics of the city have changed?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Is it really impoverished?
It was 70% black before when Marion Barry was in. And now it's going down.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, the gentrification is pricing people out of the neighborhoods. There was an area called St. Elizabeth's where there was a very large federal mental institution. And I remember going there once with a friend to work on a house. He had a construction contract to work on a house, and we had to carry loaded guns. And the people walking to the store to get bread were carrying guns, and old ladies sitting on their rocking chairs.
But it's
on
illegal,
the porch.
right, in D.C.?
Everyone was carrying because it was so crime-ridden that everyone was ready to defend themselves, and it was just hair-raising. The guy handed me a shotgun, and said, "Here, load this." As we were pulling up to the house, he said,
that whole area of Virginia was crazy at the time. I went to school in Radford, Virginia, in the late '80s, early '90s, and we're all the way in the west side of the state, and we heard stories of D.C. and Richmond all the time. Because it was pretty bad.
But D.C. now is gentrified,
really,
and is the
well. Let me read this. Read this here.
Housing is no longer.
And I wonder if that's the reason why this bill is trying to pass. This is not really an article. I'm trying to remember where I got this from. It's just an information site. I think it's called ballot.org or Ballotpedia. You familiar with that?
No.
I think it looks at all the election results and the demographics. And there's a lot of statistics on this site.
Is it fake news?
No, I don't know.
How do they know that the elections were good?
Simmer down there, Daryl.
Hey.
So this one is talking about stop being a Trumper. So this is an article they posted with some stats about laws permitting non-citizens to vote in the United States, and this was surprising to me. I read about the part where the 1996 U.S. Congress passed a law prohibiting non-citizens from voting in federal elections, but it says here as of March 2020, 2 state constitutions specified that non-citizens may not vote in state and local elections, and that's Arizona and North Dakota. No state constitution explicitly allowed non-citizens to vote in state or local elections, but there are 15 municipalities across the country that allows non-citizens to vote in local elections, and this is as of January 2022. So 11 of them are located in Maryland, which D.C. is. I always think of D.C. as Maryland, Virginia. You know, they borders or it's surrounded by both.
Especially if you were in Radford.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let me see here. 2 of them are in Vermont. You know,
typical.
And then one of them is in New York City, and the other one is in San Francisco, California.
Oh, hey, I could have said that. I would without even reading New York.
Right, exactly. This is so funny. So, so there are places, but it's still up for debate whether that some people want to allow them or not. Because apparently, some people are allowing lawmakers to make these kind of laws, allowing non-citizens or allowables. So, yeah, what?
Suppose those municipalities have a very large percentage of non-citizen residents because they're attached to embassies or to
like DC,
or they're investors, or they are journalists, or they're lawyers, and so. Such a sizable number of investors in that municipality should have a voice on whether the trash gets picked up on Tuesday or on Thursday.
Now we have the FSM citizens here, or Bob calls them habitual residents. They're not allowed to vote in our elections, are they?
If they're not U.S. citizens.
If they're not U.S. citizens.
But there are some who have been born on Guam.
And
they're turning 18 and they're voting.
That would make them citizens of the United States. But what I find interesting is that I think the FSM comes here and holds their own elections for their states here on Guam, right?
It's like absentee balloting.
But
they
bring the polls here.
Places, yes.
Right, which is I find very interesting. But I've always wondered about that because there is an interesting mix of FS. Well, yeah, okay. So never mind. I've answered my question. I was going to ask the question about citizenship and the Compact Impact Treaties, but the Constitution already deemed that anyone born on this in any U.S. land or territory is, except for Samoa, a citizen, right? Except for America Samoa.
Even a tourist.
Yep.
Baby born.
That's why they have
a citizen.
Yep. That's why they have those pregnancy tourisms, or what do they call them? Birthing vacations.
Why not?
It happens. It happens down the southern border. Not too sure about the Canadian northern border.
Even an industry.
Is it? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, there are places in L.A. that
were some of those
service.
Chinese immigrants coming off the boats. Were any of those females, and were they pregnant?
I wasn't there.
Thought you knew about these things, Daryl.
Why would you put a pregnant woman on a boat?
So that her kid can be a citizen of the United States.
And petition their parents.
That's right. So you're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. We're going to the break. At the top of the hour, we're going to play the big halftime show. The Rogues Gallery is all set to run. We got everything fixed. So don't go away. We'll be right back right after this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Opening the tap again, I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Biden will announce this afternoon his administration is taking another step to try and lower gas prices.
It will sell the final 15 million barrels of 180 million out of the strategic petroleum reserves promised months ago to help stabilize crude markets. The president also plans to buy back oil to restock the reserves when prices reach a lower level, around $70 a barrel.
Fox's Gernal Scott, the president will also push for oil companies to simply charge less because their profits are up. The president telling Democrats at a DNC meeting in Washington Tuesday they must highlight abortion rights heading into the midterm elections.
The only sure way to stop these extremist laws that are put in jeopardy women's health and rights is for Congress to pass a law.
And the president says the first piece of legislation he'll send to the next Congress is a bill to write abortion into federal law, but says he can only do that if Democrats maintain control on Capitol Hill. A published report says China has been buying U.S. hypersonic missile technology.
The Washington Post finding that Chinese military groups who are already on U.S. export control blacklists purchased advanced U.S. software. These products were developed by American companies and funded by the Pentagon. The software may have advanced the Chinese hypersonic missile programs by simulating wind tunnel conditions. U.S. Commerce Department officials who oversee export enforcement told Fox it's too early to tell whether these American companies knowingly violated the law. They are still studying the level of the aerodynamic simulation software sold to the Chinese front companies.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. The report says there have been more than 300 improper sales of U.S. technology to Chinese entities since 2019. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
FedEx has been delivered a reprieve from a lawsuit over a mass shooting because of a technicality.
8 people were killed when a former employee opened fire at a FedEx ground facility in Indianapolis last year. Families of the victims sued FedEx and a security company, alleging negligence and failing to ensure a safe workplace. FedEx filed 2 motions to dismiss, one saying the company is divided into various corporations and therefore not responsible for the actions of a subsidiary. U.S. District Judge James Sweeney rejected the claim, but dismissed the lawsuit based on the second motion that the plaintiffs pled a workers' compensation case. Judge Sweeney explained the court does not have jurisdiction because the lawsuit falls under the Indiana Workers' Compensation Act. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
They didn't see it coming. The parents of the 15-year-old boy accused of killing 5 people last week in Raleigh, North Carolina, Alan and Elise Thompson, also saying in a statement they are overcome with grief for the innocent lives lost, including another son. The accused teen shooter remains in critical condition. The accused serial killer has now been charged with 3 of the 6 murders, which he's suspected.
Wesley Brownlee, the 43-year-old of Stockton, suspected of 6 fatal shootings, charged with 3 counts of murder and firearms offenses.
We would like to remind the public that this investigation is ongoing, and in no way does our charging determination today end or conclude this investigation.
San Joaquin District Attorney Tori Verber Salazar. Brownlee, a truck driver, not charged in connection with the fatal shootings of 3 other men in Stockton, 1 in Oakland, and the shooting of a Stockton woman who survived. Though the district attorney says he was arrested with a gun of a similar caliber used in those crimes, explaining more charges are likely as officials process evidence. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Tell me about it, stud.
Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Festival is back on Saturday, October 22nd. We rockin' and rollin' at the Dusatani Quam Resort from 2 to 10 p.m. Bring your friends and come dressed in your best grease costume to win up to $500 in cash and prizes. So bust out those leather jackets and 50-style outfits as we party the night away at Circle K's Craft Beer and Whiskey Fest. Don't be a square. Get your tickets now at craftbeerfestguam.com or cruise on by any 76 Circle K location. Now that's cool, baby.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
And we are back. You just viewed, if you're watching the streams on Facebook or YouTube, the Tall Tales I'm a Tailgater Rose Gallery. I want to thank everyone who went ahead and purchased a I'm a Tailgater t-shirt, took a selfie, or had somebody take their picture for them and sent it to the Points WhatsApp account. You can, do the same by going to thepoint.gu, look for the link. The link is, let's see here, looks like this picture here on thepoint.gu. It looks like a blog entry because that's the way that the website's kind of set up in the middle of the entries itself. And then the link will send you to the site. The site will send you to the order form, And then when your shirt gets to you, put it on, take a selfie, and send it to 671-797-8255, and we'll add you to the rotation of the Rogues Gallery. The Big Halftime Show, I'm a Tailgater Rogues Gallery, is brought to you by Tall Tales. And just to let you know that none of the proceeds come to Tall Tales. This is a service we provide for the local purveyor, the local business, so that they too can have local money. I don't know how to say it. What's the correct phrase? Keeping money here on Guam. Anyways, that's my awkward way of saying support local.
Was that cotton in the shirt?
It's
grown
cotton
here on Guam.
Yes. I don't know. I'd probably not. The cotton here on Guam is not the same cotton it's in the States, right? That's I've heard of picking cotton and making pillows out of them here on Guam from the trees, right?
That's kapok.
Okay, but is that real cotton or no?
It's kapok.
Okay. Well, that's the name of it.
It's a tree that has a cotton-like.
I doubt
fiber
that those
around the
fibers
seeds.
were used to make shirts, but do they make shirts out of those fibers? That's an interesting thing to look up. My wife is a horticulturist, and she used to work at CNES.
I don't know if they've made
things like that.
There shouldn't be any reason not to.
Mm-hmm. That would be kind of cool.
The only thing I've known of using kapok was for life preservers.
Oh, it floats?
Yeah, you put it in a bag and you can float for days.
Okay,
but
you can't do
the
that with a
sharks
cotton
will get
t-shirt.
the rest of you.
Actually, there is a way to make a life preserver out of a pair of cotton pants or shirt, but I don't think that it works in the same method. But anyways, we're going off the rails here.
Deep water.
Yeah, I want to get to the next thing here on the card called the U.S. military versus the U.S. military.
Okay.
It is something that was brought up in the Wall Street Journal, and they are opining. The editorial board wrote an editorial about a report out of the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank. I'm sure you're familiar with who they are. Yes?
Ever since their book first came out, I think that was 1980, I bought the first run.
I think,
Contract with America.
70-something is when they were founded, but the Heritage Foundation was the one that came up with that?
Yeah.
I thought that was Gingrich.
Yeah, well, before Gingrich
he took
reached
it
over to the Heritage Foundation and elevated it to the level of the Brookings Institution. And
I'm not sure when they started this, but according to the report, the Heritage Foundation report, it's quite lengthy. I haven't read the whole thing. Pretty much just a couple of the first pages. It's daunting, but it says here it's a summary. The real report is online. You can find it. It's much thicker than this, of course.
Yes.
The executive summary just says each year the Heritage Foundation Index of U.S. Military Strength employs a standardized, consistent set of criteria accessible both to government officials and to American public to gauge the U.S. military's ability to perform its missions in today's world. They're not affiliated with any of the agencies, the government agencies. They do not have inside information in the sense that there's no secrets that are revealed or anything like that. This is all public information that they do this. But this is the title of the Wall Street Journal's editorial. I think they came out about 2 days ago. The U.S. military's growing weakness. A new Heritage Foundation report warns about declining U.S. naval and air power. Americans like to think their military is unbeatable if politicians wouldn't get in the way. The truth is that U.S. hard power isn't what it used to be, and that's the message of the Heritage Foundation's 2023 Index of U.S. Military Strength, which is reported here for the first time and describes a worrisome trend. Now, I don't know what credibility this report has, but the fact that the editorial board from Wall Street Journal decided to take it on, I think is pretty interesting. Maybe because it does denote a weakness in the military. But let's continue.
I'm really waiting for the bottom line.
Heritage rates the U.S. military as weak and at growing risk of not being able to meet the demands of defending America's vital national interests. The weak rating, down from a marginal a year earlier, is the first in the index's 9-year history. The index measures the military's ability to prevail in two major regional conflicts at once, say a conflict in the Middle East and a fight on the Korean Peninsula. Americans might wish that the world be a simpler, less threatening place, as the report notes, but these commitments are part of a U.S. national security strategy. Heritage says that the U.S. military risks being unable to handle even a single major regional conflict, as it also tries to deter rogues elsewhere. The Trump administration's one-time cash infusion has dried up. Pentagon budgets aren't keeping up with inflation, and the branches are having to make trade-offs about whether to be a modern, large, or ready to fight tonight. The decline is especially acute in the Navy and Air Force, the two main branches here on Guam. Very interesting. The Navy has been saying for years it needs to grow at least 350 ships, plus more unmanned platforms. Yet the Navy has shown a persistent inability to arrest and reverse the continued demonization of its fleet, the report says. But one analysis it has under-delivered on shipbuilding plans by 10 ships a year on average over the past 5 years. From 2005 to 2020, the U.S. fleet grew to 296 warships from 291, while China's Navy grew to 360 from 216. War isn't won on numbers alone, but China is also narrowing the U.S. technological advantage in every area, from aircraft carrier catapults to long-range missiles. The Navy wants to build 3 Virginia-class submarines a year, and the U.S. still has an edge over Beijing in these fast attack boats. But the shipbuilding industry has shrunk amid waning demand, and the Navy's maintenance yards are overwhelmed. Maintenance delays and backlogs are the result of running the fleet too hard. On a typical day in June, roughly one-third of the 298-ship fleet was deployed, double the average of the Cold War. It's worse in the Air Force, which gets a very weak rating. Aging aircraft and very poor pilot training and retention have produced an Air Force that would struggle greatly against a peer competitor, Heritage says. The fighter and bomber forces are contracting to about 40% of what America had in the 1980s. The service has been slowing its F-35 buys even as it needs modern planes to compensate for the smaller fleet. Aircraft have low mission capable rates, roughly 50% for the F-22. Heritage says that the Air Force has abandoned even the illusion that it is working towards an 80% aircraft readiness goal. Munitions inventories probably would not support a peer-level fight that lasted more than a few weeks, and replacements can take 24 to 36 months to arrive. A pilot shortage continues to plague the service, and the current generation of fighter pilots, those who have been actively flying for the past 7 years, has never experienced a healthy rate of operational flying. Fighter pilots flew a meager 10 hours a month on an average in 2021, up from 8.7 in 2020, but still far below the 200 hours a year minimum needed to be proficient against a formidable opponent. The story isn't much better for the Army, which has lost $59 billion in buying power since 2018 due to flat budgets and inflation. The Army is shrinking, not as a choice about priorities, but because it can't recruit enough soldiers, nearly 20,000 short in fiscal 2022. The Marines scored better in the index as the only branch articulating and executing a plan to change, reorganizing for a war in the Pacific in a concept known as Force Design 2030. But the Marines are slimming down to a bare-bones 21 infantry battalions from 27 as recently as 2011. Mission success for the Marines depends on a new amphibious ship that the Navy may not be able to deliver. Some will call all this alarmist and ask why the Pentagon can't do better on an $800 billion budget. The latter is a fair question, and the answer requires procurement and other changes. But the U.S. will also have to spend more on defense if it wants to protect its interests and the homeland. The U.S. is spending about 3% of its GDP now compared to 5 to 6% in the 1980s. The Heritage Report is a warning that you can't deter war, much less win one, on the cheap.
Guam is getting $8 billion more over the next 4 or 5 years.
On defense, on...
Yeah. And
Wow.
so this is one of the places where money is being put. And if you talk to anyone who's in the know, if you look at any other reports, they will say the same thing.
Yeah, and again, this is a foundation that has no affiliation with any agencies. I think it just takes public reports. I'm not sure they go and get secret information or anything else from any other place.
They don't have to. All they need to do is
FOIA.
to no. All they need to do is to use publicly available. Overlay their judgments on what it is that is needed for the scenarios, and then privately behind the scenes check it with recent retirees.
Oh, and what they did.
And no, they'll be able to say you're on the right track. No, you're missing the boat here, without actually giving up any secrets. But there are dimensions like space warfare and unmanned vehicles and the dispersion of troops, so you're not fighting an old-style war. And I'm not sure whether this Heritage report takes that into account.
Well, they did have a overall rating for U.S. military power in space, even though that's a new branch, relatively new branch, and it just gave a marker of weak. But this is just the executive summary. I'm going to look more into the reasons why they would give a rating to the Space Force. Is that what the official name is?
Yes, but how much of a force it is
who knows? Yeah,
is
we're missing a couple of flux capacitors. That's why.
Well, what this relates back, without
crystals.
getting deep into it, it relates back to being able to throw a whole lot of old hardware into Ukraine, and
but that's what
replacing our domestic stocks with the updated stuff.
And I think I read some articles not related to this report, but on the amount of spending we're giving to Ukraine, and even the amount of hardware and other items we're sending there to the Ukraine.
So it's no longer in our inventory. So we have to
exactly.
replenish.
That's why it's concerning.
But
Is
we don't
if
need
something
the old
happens?
stuff.
Well, yes and no. I think the thing is that when we don't have an inventory, when we don't have my interest right now is confidence, and perception is a huge thing. And again, what they wrote here is interesting because it's calling our military weak, more so than any time before. Like they said, 9 years, 10 years. It's kind of a young report. I would like to see a 20-year comparison.
Rand has been doing this since the 60s.
Okay.
So yeah, Heritage
to see that.
is a newbie on the block.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially since we've been fighting a war nonstop since at least 1988 or 89.
Right, and during that whole time, we have been, or the U.S. government has been spending money on manufacturing capability, and so we're continually replenishing our stocks with new items, new cruise missiles, new avionics. The big questions about the big ticket items, a new aircraft carrier or F-35s and stuff like that, those are the headlines. But the core of the military is getting all new stuff. And now, if
and
we
training.
And training.
And there's a controversy about firing ranges and such on this island, but that's a big part of training. You can't do everything virtual. There was a time where the U.S. Army I was playing video games back in the early 90s, and PlayStation had a couple of games, military games that were developed by the U.S. Army, and I don't know if that was a recruiting tool or they've used some of it in training as well, but there's nothing like real training and not virtual training. Even though for all of us who grew up in the 80s and watched The Last Starfighter as something that could be cool. Do you remember The Last Starfighter, that movie? A kid
the
was...
F-104?
No. The Last Starfighter was about a kid who was growing up in the trailer park and didn't have a future ahead of him, but he was very good in this video game that he broke all the high scores and beat the aliens. And then these aliens came and said, "Thank you we were recruiting you because you passed our test." And it was not just a recruiting tool for space, but it was a way for them to recruit people to help fight their wars. It was a fictional movie, Daryl. It wasn't a documentary.
Something that's not fictional, that's also in the headlines over the last 18 hours, is that Britain is moving to pass a law to restrict its citizens from going to China to train their military.
Interesting. But I'm going to try to do a transition here, Doc. Are we going to stick with we need a new hospital on this site, or maybe we might need these missiles? How awful was that transition, or was that pretty good, Doc? Welcome to Tall Tales. I know you want to talk about GMH.
No, that was a great segue because you guys actually, I was engrossed by your highbrow analysis of the technical challenges being faced by our nation's military. I mean, obviously the choice before us is whether to put missile defense systems there in Eagles Field, which the military apparently still claims as land of their own. And then just Monday we found out that there's some law that was written by supposedly Robert Underwood that prevents the original landowners from ever even dreaming that they would get the land back, which I think many of them had to that point believed that they would eventually get the land back. So this whole debate and discussion locally for the last 48 hours really does illuminate a lot of the realities that our community is facing as we go towards this very important election, in the next couple of weeks. So I feel smarter for the experience of the conversation between you and Daryl. I understood very little of it, but I think you guys are, providing a great
we're just
service
scratching the surface. There's a lot here to unwrap, but it affects us because I think we're right dab in the middle of what's happening in the world, simply because we are some people call it the tip of the spear, some people call it the broadside of the shield, and it's a reality.
Right, or the center of a bullseye target from North Korea. And so, China, they don't have missiles named Guam Killer for no reason in Beijing, right? So I think it's an appropriate discussion to have. And meanwhile, our governor wants to build a hospital right next door to it, which I personally don't think is a good idea, but she never asked me, so I guess I have no say. But I will have a say in who I vote for in the next couple of weeks, and I do intend to vote for Felix Camacho, and I think him and Tony Atta are being a lot more level-headed about this. In fact, I'm understanding that they're reaching out right now to the original landowners of the Eagles Field, as well as to other original landowners around the island who are now all wondering, what is the governor up to, and why is it only now that they're being told that there's apparently millions of dollars that they're going to be paid so that they never have access to their ancestral lands.
Well, and strategy-wise, it's a tactic to take the heat off of what Ken Leon Guerrero has been doing and asking questions about the new hospital and its plans.
Well, I'm not sure that was such a great strategy to suddenly inflame the entire Chamorro Nation.
At least it was a good strategy.
Given a choice between money and land, I think some of the more pure-hearted people are going to say, give me land. I'm not a whore. You can't just throw dollar bills at me and expect me to, I mean, that's the thing. The governor's acting like a Marine at a titty bar.
Oh, okay.
Dollar.
And they sure did get...
You got one more word, Doctor.
And they sure did get the...
I'm getting there.
They sure did get the spotlight off of anyone from GMH who was hoping to get some scraps tossed your way too.
No, I think this is actually like those fights that they have in junior high school where everybody kind of circles around to find out if who's your cousin fighting this time.
Right.
And the governor's picking fights with everybody. I thought she was supposed to be building coalitions, right? I mean, I kind of love the attempt by, I believe her name is Ginger Cruz.
Oh boy!
Allege that all the homeless people on Guam actually are Republicans. I thought all the homeless
bought
people
and paid
were
for.
Democrats.
You know, bought and paid for people are living as homeless, impoverished people.
They
They
could be
don't look like
CIA.
Republicans to me. I thought all the Republicans looked like what's that guy's name? The one who was with Ronald Reagan, the guy from Indiana. He was clean cut and he was dumb. But the Republicans don't look so urbane and sustainable as our homeless people who are able to use things for days and days and days and not have to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So Ginger, I think, is off base. I hope she issues an apology to all the Republicans on island and also to all the homeless people. She's offended like two major groups of people who could have been part of the coalition for Lou and Josh.
Well, I think they're just flailing their arms right now, and whatever they hit. It's not very precise, and you're right, it's a bad strategy.
So you want Ginger on base.
Fan.
Yeah.
Kind of like the proverbial fan, which the shit hits every once in a while.
Okay, all right.
So before I get you censored, can I talk about what I really wanted to talk about, which is the fact that
give us the family version. Give us the family version.
Okay, ready?
Let's go.
Tomorrow, our discussion. Everybody, write this down. Is abortion. Because apparently the legislature want to talk about heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
They want to talk about when is a baby not a baby, and I mean this is another up to your neck discussion in life, and I think there's going to be need for the governor to come out of her cave and go down to the legislature and face the music, because she's brought this discussion to the community with not a whole lot of I think sympathy and heart to the very strong feelings that everybody's had. This is a divisive topic, one which I don't know that there's any good answers, right? I mean, the good answers is that everybody loves each other and takes care of every baby, and that there's no kid that's ever abused, and love all the way around. But we have a community that's hurting, and we have children that are in need of love. So if our governor could be moved to come down to the legislature tomorrow and talk about heartbeats, it would be a great day to recognize that, and I said this before, and I'll just say it again, we have a crisis at GMH that doesn't involve just the infrastructure and the protective envelope of the facilities. It's the fact that we don't have enough doctors delivering these babies, both taking care of them both in the hospital as well as at public health. There are no OB doctors at public health providing prenatal care for these high-risk pregnancies that we're seeing sometimes due to substance abuse, sometimes due to mental health issues. So we're seeing a lot more complicated pregnancies in the hospital, and it doesn't seem like the governor has addressed this. I hope she has a good answer, because she is a nurse, she is a mother, she is a grandmother, and I think she needs to speak loudly about what she intends to do, because Christmas is usually a time that babies are born. I mean, Christmas typically is the time that we celebrate the birth of Jesus, because it's called Christmas. And so maybe if we could take care of the obstetrics part of women's health care, the governor can maybe bring some of us back together, right? I mean, we need to build coalitions, and what a great topic to help bring everybody together and make everybody feel good.
Well, tomorrow's Thursday, so they're going into session, and that's what's on the table to talk about tomorrow on the docket.
Yeah, Talina Nelson,
okay,
our favorite Democrat, is apparently introducing this bill, which she crafted from legislation out of Texas.
Right.
And so it should be a discussion that has a lot of already background material, because they've argued about it in other states.
Let me preempt some of their strategies that I think they're going to go forward, and kind of ask you a question. If you have a memory of 2013 when the Infant Right to Life Act was introduced, I don't remember seeing any testimonies back then, but I have seen a couple of testimonies that were recorded and preserved from some doctors, usually the same doctors that advocate for abortion here on Guam. Lulian Guerrero, as a private citizen, had testified against this bill, claiming that we're replacing doctors with this bill. Are you familiar with the? It's now a law where if an infant was born despite an attempt on its life through abortion, that medical care must be provided seeing that I think that
I remember the discussion. I don't remember that there were a whole lot of doctors who advocated for abortion. And if you're suggesting that the then Senator Lulian Guerrero, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a nurse, wanted to preserve these babies if at all possible, it was probably because we
no, she did not want to. Yeah, she did. She actually voted. She actually testified against providing medical care. So I'm going to connect this to the homeless issue since it seems to be prevalent. We have in that testimony, she said that she alluded to a cost to a person's worth to some money. How much is going to cost to preserve this person's or this baby's life based on its quality of life, however that's determined for her. Does she deem homeless, impoverished people as a low quality of life, and would she be willing to not do anything for them because it would cost the government and the society too much money to help them out? Like their worth is too expensive. Her testimony against infants was exactly that. They would cost too much money, so we should allow them to just die on the operating table. Is this her same policy for these homeless people, which nothing is being done for them?
Wow, that's like Hunger Games, man. That's
well, I'm just going with consistency of policy, right?
Wow, I don't like. This discussion is going to be very uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable, and it starts at abortion because that's the very beginning of life. So right. if her policy is that at the very beginning of life, how else?
That certain people are expendable.
Exactly.
That some people's lives are worth more than others.
It's a valid question.
That some human being has the authority and the ability to make some conscious decision about what worth is of another person, and then use the government resources to for or against that person. Yeah,
or just ignore them.
Doesn't sound very American. Doesn't sound very, very noble, nor does it sound very Christian. So tomorrow's discussion should get all the people who are noble, Christian, and American activated to register to vote. I think this is the kind of discussion that we need to have to get undecided people a little bit more decided. I mean, what would make you more unhappy than to hear that homeless people are going to be aborted because they are not worthy of living? They've made
or never minded.
They're too expensive to deal with.
Their quality of life is low.
Yeah, and who makes that decision? Apparently, the governor of Guam, Lulian Guerrero.
That remains to be seen. Yeah.
Slippery slope, yeah? This is the proverbial slippery slope. You don't want to go down here where you're talking about this kind of crap. And not that these people are crap. These are politically suicidal issues. These are the kind of things, as a smart politician, you might not want to be associated with 3 weeks in an election where you're running neck and neck, with a couple of nice guys.
Right.
We shall see. We shall see if any of this bears fruit. Because now it's all conjecture.
It has, but it's been very great. I'm very surprised you went controversial today on your call. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised you're surprised.
I'm just kidding. Always great to talk to you, Doc. You have a great day,
buddy.
All right,
Bye-bye.
you too. We're going to go to a real quick. We're still on the air, right? I want to go to the 7th inning stretch. We do have Mark in the green room. Don't go away, Mark. I'll get right to you as soon as we get back from this break. You're listening to Tall Tales here on KUSG 93.3 FM. We'll be right back.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pica's best radio station,
and we want to keep it that way. Voting for Pica's best radio station is on and underway. If you've already voted for The Point, thank you. If not, there's still time to get yours in. We're honored that many of you have nominated us again, and we'll keep looking for ways to keep you informed, up to date, and entertained. Fox News, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie and all the great talk shows from around the USA. Tell a friend and share your votes with all The Point's super advertisers. Thanks from all the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
The seventh inning stretch. 2 more innings to go before the end of this program. Wednesday's episode of Tall Tales. And up next to bat is Mark, who wants to go back and opine about the Heritage Report. What say you, Mark?
Yeah, so was that specifically on the U.S. Military?
Yes.
Or was it talking? So have they done anything about the world?
That's a good question. I don't even know if they do that, but it is a think tank based in...
Go back to last year
Uh-huh.
and find their report on Russia and how powerful Russia was and how sad Ukraine was and then read up on that, and then you can basically
there's a comparison
understand where they're coming from.
Right.
No, I'm pretty sure everyone thought that Russia was going to roll over Ukraine. And now, and
that's true.
And now it looks like the Ukraine's going to be able to negotiate a surrender, but or a ceasefire. But I really doubt Putin's going to give up Crimea.
Yeah, well, that's all he wanted. Actually, he wanted those lands that were of his heritage, right?
No, he wanted Crimea, but he also wanted the Donbass because he didn't have the Donbass, and he wanted that because of the industrial capability of that region. So, yeah, I think they're going to have a really, really hard time trying to settle this unless Ukraine just kicks them out of the country.
And it's interesting that a war that we're not directly involved with, in the sense that we don't have troops on the ground or anything like that, is seemingly taking our resources away from our own military. And Daryl did say it is older stuff. Whether it's older stuff or not, that's still resources. We all seen some battles won on a wing and a prayer, and maybe 5 magazines of ammunition, and that's what makes some great hero stories. True stories.
Yeah.
But you're right. There ought to be a comparison made with world militaries. I'm not sure if that's how they do their report, or if they report from the previous year's reports, or they make a comparison. But you're right. That is a good question, and I'm going to look to see if they have done anything similar. They do have an extensive website with a lot of resources and a lot of commentary as well. But
because you can take information and twist it to the way you want it to look, and
right.
I kind of get the feeling that's what they're doing.
Well, the way that the Wall Street Journal had put their editorial, I think they said I think they said this is the first time they've reported on it or opined on it, and I thought that was interesting as well. But it is a newsworthy story when you have a report that is always generally positive, for the first time report something negative.
Critical.
Yeah, very critical. Yeah. And this is a conservative think tank. This is not politically attached to any party, although there are connections to the Republican Party. But we always connect the Republican Party or conservatives to our military strength, usually, traditionally, but not so much right now.
Well, maybe because the fact that the Republicans aren't in power. So that's why it might be slanted.
Yeah, but that's not the reason why the Heritage Foundation said that the military is weak. But you do have something to discuss also. Is it because of who's in the Oval Office right now? That's true.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thanks for calling in, Mark. Always good to hear.
Sure, right.
All right.
Okay.
Right. He's the one that Bob says is here to make his mark.
I wanted to reiterate a point I made earlier in a slightly different way. When the U.S. sends munitions to another country, basically what it's saying is, we'll pay for this stuff that we're sending you, but what the U.S. is spending on is U.S. domestic manufacturing to replace with upgrades. So although it is, yes, we're giving this to
it's an
Ukraine,
industry.
We have just cranked up our industries.
But is that what happened during this time, where
yes.
that giving of munition stuff converted into an industry in the States? Because it says it hasn't reduced.
When we draw down our stocks, we're issuing contracts for the replacement of those stocks. So manufacturing lines are ramping up, and they only do that if they can get these replaced.
Did you watch the newest Top Gun, Maverick?
Can you see this blank look on my face?
Oh my
I don't
gosh,
do
you
movies,
missed
you know.
an
I don't
awesome
remember what
movie.
I don't even remember what I watched.
Did you watch
last
the
night.
original one? There is a point to why I'm asking, Daryl. I'm not just reminiscing about movies.
I have this
well, in the original one,
blank spot in my mind about
Tom
movies.
Cruise flew F-14 Tomcat. I think that's what it's called.
Tomcat Cruise.
F-14, and then in this newest movie, they're flying a completely different aircraft, of course, updated and everything else. But the place where they go to, is it Russia they go? I can't remember the name of this movie. I just saw it recently.
You don't remember.
Yeah, I'm getting old. But they were able to escape because their craft was destroyed or shot down. They were able to escape on old U.S. F-14s that were now on this other Russian base or something like that, which I found interesting. So does the military get rid of planes and technology like that to other countries, or is this probably from a black market?
Not black market so much, but former allies transferring, like let's say a Pakistani pilot taking off with one of our planes. And that's why we don't sell planes with the latest stuff.
Well, yeah, everything's taken out of it. But yeah, that was interesting to see. I know it's a fictional movie, but I am sure that there's things that are around that that used to be in our possession, our military inventory, that are now in foreign militaries. Take Afghanistan, for instance. They have a whole base full of stuff now.
That it wasn't worth it for us to take out because we had a year to do it. We knew we were leaving.
That's the story. But
it was negotiated, right, in February? About the same time that
we lost
COVID
the caller.
hit. Yeah.
Okay. Are they going to call back or?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. Please call back. I think I recognize that number. So, yeah, so that's an interesting take on the military, especially coming out of a place where we do rely on the military here, and not just for protection and defense, but they are a vital part of the economy, even if they don't seem to be. And there was an article that we read today in the paper in Guampedian, on the Guam Daily Post, talking about tourists and some of the military tourism here on the island. Do we want to get to this caller first? Okay. Ken LG, thanks for calling in.
The movie you're referring to, they were in Iran, and back in the 70s, Iran bought 80 or 90 F-14s. And so the only F-14s that are still flying outside of a few collectors that managed to get their hands on them were in Iran. I think Iran still has like 9 or 10 left in flying condition.
Minus the one Tom Cruise took.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that little barrier in the middle of the runway that they just managed to get over.
Right.
Yeah, I saw that movie. See, this is what drives Daryl nuts. You and I are talking movies, and whenever we go walking and stuff, we go, "Did you see the movie?" See, we have totally different tastes in movies, So it's nice that you and I can connect on this movie level.
There you go.
Move on.
I feel that much closer to you, Ken. Thank you very much.
I can remember the lineup on an LP that was made 50, 60 years ago, but I cannot remember the movie I saw 2 nights ago.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's your forte there. Well, Ken, thanks for calling in. There's nothing else you want to talk about here?
Well, of course I wanted to talk about my testimony last night after 5.5 hours. You see, this is one of the things that really drives me nuts. They got these metal chairs, that are designed to torture you. Anyway, that's separate subject.
Bring your own stadium cushion.
Yeah, really. But the fact that so many government officials testified about the lack of knowledge, here they are. These are the people that are supposedly driving hard this $2 to $5 billion acquisition. I mean, we're looking at when I say 2 to 5, I'm looking at all-in cost. You know, so $2.4 billion just for the hospital. But before you build the hospital, you have to widen Route 15 to 4 lanes from 2, and then you have to put all the infrastructure down first before you go in and put the road in. You know, and you're looking at 3 to 5 years just for that. So there's no way in hell that the governor's going to build a hospital in 3 to 4 years when she hasn't even done one single thing based on the line of witnesses that were pleading the fifth. We have no knowledge. We have no knowledge. We're not part of that group. We haven't made any decisions. But if you haven't made any decisions, how is the governor going to do this incredible feat of construction in basically 3 to 4 years when we're looking at by established law to meet the requirements to say this is where we're going to build it? You're looking at 2 to 3 years of site survey and EPA evaluations, soil and seismic study and water study, architectural remains. You know, that process is 3 to 5 years. I mean, look at all the pre-work that went into Camp Blas. And
it's still ongoing.
It's still down here at Naval Station. You know, before they do anything, there's a 2 to 3 year advance work before they even design the building. And look at Simon Sanchez, 10 years into this process, and now they are expecting that by summer of next year they will have completed the A&E.
So yesterday's hearing was an oversight hearing, and it was supposed to be an oversight hearing for the new hospital site or the plans, or what was the specific title or reason?
The title of the public hearing was oversight on the site selection and update of the Guam Memorial Hospital master plan.
And so if that was so, and I know that it was attached to Eagles Field, of course, because that's the site that's located. From what I heard, and I haven't watched the hearing yet because I've been doing other things right now related to well, I'm not gonna make any excuses, just finding time. I heard that the majority of a lot of yesterday's testimonies was based on Eagles Field and land management. And I know that is very important, but how much time was actually given to oversight of the plans and everything else and what you presented?
I would say 30 minutes, and 20 minutes was me.
Okay.
So there were 10 minutes of questions to Lillian Posadas, who didn't know anything. And that is really alarming considering she's the head of this task force. You know,
I would say that they were sent there without any information to give intentionally. You know, I mean, they show up, but I don't think anything was really going to be revealed yesterday, except for anything that you presented. Again, I'm not very optimistic about the transparency of this administration, and it just doesn't look like they have a willingness to share anything.
That's true. I mean, that lack of transparency goes back to their first days in office. I mean, remember in the first days in office, we had all these people maneuvering to get double and triple, to double their pay raises, and they were doing it through the dark corridors in the dark of night and by memo and stuff like that. So that part hasn't changed. But what has changed here in this equation, and those people are actually, that were up there testifying, they're totally ignorant of what's taking place here. And the reason I say that is because I've looked at hundreds of pages of documents, and I can tell you that there has been the only thing that's been accomplished so far is transferring $1.8 million to Matrix Design Group.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, they are doing it under a contract that was issued in April 2014 for the Hagana Restoration Project. And somehow the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration pumped oxygen into it, gave it CPR, brought the contract back to life, just like young Frankenstein. And now we got this Frankenstein of a contract going around where the governor can divert money to that contract without public oversight.
Well, it seems like a huge. The scope has changed so much that it seems like a totally new contract.
Yeah,
is that kosher?
Well, it is if nobody objects to it, if nobody protests against it.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that someone has objected to it and protests against it, now we have the basis for a legal challenge. Mm-hmm. But all it takes is money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into this already for thousands of dollars out of my own pocket just to get this information. And I shouldn't have to do that. The government should provide this information. I shouldn't be required to, file an action in court to compel the governor to comply with the law.
You're right.
That's the type of governor we have. They don't do anything. Neither does Lillian Posadas or Steve Ignacio. You have to literally serve them to get them to follow the laws of Guam.
Yeah, well, Ken, we have to do something, and that's to go to a hard break because it is almost the top of the hour. Churchill Downs, thank you for calling in. I look forward to hearing from you tomorrow morning on Ray's show, too, because I'm sure there's more. Have a great day.
We'll talk. Right. Remember, Iran and F-14.
There you go. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You're welcome.
We'll be right back after Churchill Downs. Don't go away. More Tall Tales after this.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Churchill Downs, home stretch. We have a few minutes left before the top of the hour and the end of today's episode. We normally don't do this on Tall Tales, but we got a little special request. Ray talked about a little bit this morning. There is a film being premiered this Friday, October 21st at Regal Theaters, and the producer is somebody who's from Guam. His name is Lawrence Iriarte, and originally from Jigo. His cousins wanted to give him a shout out. Tommy, Kathy, John, JJ, and Michael Sablon, who are their neighbors, and he does have twin brothers here on the island too. So there's a huge connection to Guam. The name of the film is Lumpia with a Vengeance, and you can go watch that on Friday, October the 21st, at Regal Theaters.
Is that all evening?
I'm not sure what the time is. It doesn't say. But if you go to their website or go to their box office or call the box office number, I'm sure they'll give some times. And it's probably going to be playing all weekend as well. The name of that film is Lumpia with the Vengeance. I have no idea what it's about. But I think that the connection to Guam is more than enough reason to go check it out. Alrighty. Daryl, it's been a crazy day. I thought it was going to be a dull day.
It's a rainy day.
Yeah, it is a rainy day. There's still a lot more to unpack. The headlines and the top of the fold stories that were in both papers I think are very important, especially the ones that have to do with small businesses, the LEAP funds that might be coming out. We had the optimism of GVB versus the realities of the small businesses, especially the industry. So, we'll go over that and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. And especially if they're going to be talking about the Heartbeat Act tomorrow, I'm going to try to join in and see it before the program and And then we'll get to
a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming up.
The campaign's finally kicking in.
Right.
Hey,
a couple more weeks to go. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tall Tales. My name is Jose. I'll be here tomorrow. Same with Daryl. Hopefully, you'll be here tomorrow.
I'll be here.
The invitation's open, Daryl. So
thank you.
So you're invited. But before we go, we absolutely must greet our president. Everyone, join me. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Opening the taps again on Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Biden early this afternoon will order another 15 million barrels of oil released from the country's strategic petroleum reserve in an effort to bring down gasoline prices. The levels in the reserve are already the lowest they've been in 38 years. The president plans to replenish that supply, but not until crude oil prices fall to about $70 a barrel, while the administration will also put pressure on oil companies.
The White House will again urge oil companies to cut their prices. President Biden says right now the profits on gas sold are twice what it is normally, and adds to consumer costs.
That's Fox's Gernal Scott. AAA says the average price for a gallon of gasoline this morning is down just over 1.5 cents from yesterday. Speaking at a Democratic National Committee event in Washington last night, the president tried to refocus voter attention on the Supreme Court decision, setting aside Roe versus Wade, saying if Democrats maintain control of the Congress.
First bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade. And when Congress passes it, I'll sign it in January, 50 years after Roe was first decided the law of the land.
But a new poll by the New York Times and Siena College finds voters have moved on from the abortion ruling.
That survey among likely voters showed abortion has faded from top voter priorities and concerns. 44% are calling inflation and the economy their top worry. Only 5% said abortion.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich reports the survey finds independent women voters are moving away from Democrat candidates in large numbers. School board in the St. Louis suburb of Florissant has decided to shut down an elementary school after a study found radioactive contamination in it and around it, thought to be from World War II nuclear weapons production nearby. America is listening to